All right, going live in three, two, one. This is the Anna Hummel Factor. We're up to episode number 11. We're getting up there. How you doing, Anna?
I'm doing fantastic. I got my hair done. I treat myself once a year to a big cut, color, style, the whole nine. So I'm feeling pretty good. I'm pretty blonde right now, and as you can see from my little picture that's there, I don't have blonde hair naturally. So this is kind of new for me, but it's kind of fun to try something different.
So you don't have any pictures so we can see what you look like?
Not right now. No, I literally just came from the appointment maybe like an hour and a half ago and then went grocery shopping, rushed home, that whole thing. So, no, I don't have any updated pictures, but yeah, I'm kind of digging this new look. I'm like, who is this person with blonde hair? But it's fun, you know?
Yeah. Have you ever dyed your hair before?
I have, yeah. But it had been about a year and it looked like shit. At a certain point, all the colors just kind of looked orange, kind of had like brassy tones. So it looked really, really bad. But I would say this is probably the most drastic I've gone for sure.
Oh,
It
if
seems
you
to get more and more drastic every time I dye it, where I'm going, farther and farther away from my natural hair color, but that's okay.
have you ever dyed it where like one of these really really unnatural colors like pink or blue or something?
No, no. I only started coloring my hair 2 years ago. Prior to that, I had completely virgin hair, never permed it, never dyed it, never did anything, never even put like sun in it, like nothing. But I think post breakup, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna try something new. Start dyeing your hair, doing crazy stuff. So no, it's still, I mean, it doesn't look natural in the sense of like I'm clearly not a blonde, but it's not like a bleach blonde platinum or anything like that. It's like they call it a balayage. So it's kind of like a mix of colors like painted on your hair. It sounds weird, but it actually looks okay.
Well, as long as it looks pretty good. I mean, did you do? They did it for you though, right? This wasn't something you did yourself.
Oh God, yeah. I have like no like fine motor skills, so it's hard for me to even like blow dry my hair. Like I hate doing any of that shit. So yeah, I just go to someone and I'm like, get crazy with it, and I tell them what they want, and they're like, no, you're gonna do this. I'm like, okay, like whatever you think's best. I don't care.
So
So
did you? So the hair is like, is it like I'm curious to see, but is it a different like texture, like curly, straight now, or what? Did you change anything like that?
well, they styled it, but like once I wash it, it'll go back to my natural curl. But right now it's kind of got like big sexy waves, which is not. I mean, I have like kind of a really really wavy, not so much curly, and I don't have like ringlet curls, but I have like really really wavy hair. Um, and that's kind of the curl pattern. So now it's just like it looks like it. I've come from a salon. It does not look like I woke up like this or anything. But it's cool. It's cool to play dress up every once in a while.
No, so I mean, as far as the blonde, I mean, eventually your natural color is going to work through. You're going to like, I mean, yeah, I always see whenever like a person dyes their hair and you have the roots gradually coming in. Are you going to do something about that, or are you gonna what are you going to do when that happens?
Well, what's cool about the way that I got it done and the way that I've only got it done, I've never done like one color, like what do they call it? Like one base color. It's what they call balayage. So they do different colors, and they don't put it right at the root of your scalp. So when it grows out, when your hair grows out, it looks okay. It doesn't look like white trash where it's like brown for like 2 inches and then blonde the rest. Like that looks like shit. So this is kind of like they just take pieces of the hair and dye them. They don't dye the whole thing. It's not like one like box color, where it's like your hair is blonde. It's all painted in different shades, and like the bottom of my hair, like by the nape of my neck, is still like my dark brown color. So when it starts to grow out, it won't look insane. Won't look, I always call it like the white trash look, where it's like an inch of dark hair and then you just have like orange blonde hair. It looks terrible. So yeah, that won't happen. But after a year, it's gonna look like shit, and you need to get it redone. So
I, I never knew that the white trash look was available at any salons. Is that?
yeah. Well, I mean, when it grows out, if you dye
Oh,
your hair like one color shade of blonde and you have brown hair, I mean, in 2 weeks you're going to start seeing your roots and you're going to look ridiculous. So
I gotcha. I got.
yeah.
Well, did you want to check our questions from? We had two questions from last.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Let me see here. Oh, we forgot to do a test beforehand. Hopefully, you'll be able to see this. Let's see what we got here. You able to see that?
I can see that. Yes.
Cool. All right. One was about marriage. I forget what. Let's see. What we gotta scan through here. Okay. What was the first? Oh, it's both about marriage. Okay. How do you feel about marriage? Okay. Wow. 36 responses on this one. Oh. How do you feel about marriage? No, I don't want to get married. I'm sorry. I don't want to get married. At 46%. Pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect that one. I thought yes would be the predominant one there. I forget what it was last week, but wow, 30% yes, I do want to get married. 18% I don't care, and 5% with I'm already married. What do you think?
That's kind of what I expected, to be honest with you.
Oh,
No, I don't want to get married. Yeah, yeah. I think that that's kind of the trend these days. Is less and less people, fewer and fewer people want to get married.
hmm. I guess the only benefit for getting married would be maybe for tax reasons.
Actually, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of benefits in terms of like socially, people like to other people to recognize their union, and also religiously, people think that they have this, uh, what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It's just like a union under God, So it has more meaning to people who are religious because they think that their marriage is in the eyes of God. Yeah.
Oh, well, coming from a professed atheist, that's kind of an interesting comment there. So,
Oh
uh,
no, I mean I don't think that. I'm saying other people who are religious think
I get
that.
you.
Yeah.
Kiss Best Fan says, I want to get married, but finding the right person isn't quite easy. Let's see. I don't know what that's Samu. I don't know if that means something. I'm already married. Uh, Ice Machine says, I will if I find the right another one. Same as the other same comment. Big something, Big Papa Jersh says, been there, done that. Bought the shirt, moved on without the headache. Andrew says marriage is literally just a legal binding document stating that two people are a couple. Dumb. So how do you feel about that from a libertarian point of view?
That marriage is dumb.
Well, I mean
Uh,
that marriage. So let me rephrase that. As far as the government intervening in something like that, I mean they're basically intervening in the sense that they're the ones that give you the license. I guess is what I mean. I mean, is it really should the government just stay out of that?
should the government just stay out of that?
Yeah.
Um,
Should the
I
marriage
don't,
just
I don't, I don't want the government involved in my affairs, but in some circumstances, I understand, especially when both parties are working. So when you have a mother in the home, let's just say that that's a standard kind of example, and she's raising the children. The fact that she wouldn't have any access to her husband's funds would obviously be problematic, or if they were to split up and she had no rights or protection, that would be really problematic for her because how would she be able to sustain herself, especially if she's never even been in the workforce before.
Hmm.
So I mean, now we've kind of had an overcorrection where men are paying alimony sometimes for a lifetime, which is insane. So that's definitely not good either. But I understand why the couple can get tax breaks and things like that. I personally don't like the government involved in my personal affairs.
Well, yeah,
I
but
understand the reason for it, but that's not my preference.
but basically there's like a gray area. What you're saying with marriage, though? Is that what you're saying? It's what it sounds like. I mean, it seems like that's what my question was. How do you feel about specifically about marriage? So you're saying yes, but kind of, but there's some reasoning behind it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, of course there's some reasoning behind it. I'm not a fan of that. I don't ever want to be in a situation where, again, the government is already invested in our personal affairs enough. I don't need them involved in like my sexual union. So that's personally how I feel, but I understand the benefits it offers people, who want a more traditional conventional way of life. I'm just not one of them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm still kind of a gray on that one. I kind of a gray
Yeah.
area on this. So it's like not really yes or no. It's kind of yes, but with reasons, I guess. So
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Or you could say like, hey, this is good. This works for some people, but not for me.
okay,
So.
all right. So libertarian on almost everything else except for marriage. So I'm just joking with you there. Sweeto, I can't pronounce the name. Says smiley face with little thingies. I'm not sure what that means. I'll be getting married at the end of the year. That's got lows. I feel kind of out of place. LOL. So let's see. Christian Galang. Is that what it is? Planning. What does that say? First planning first.
For I don't know. I can't read.
Before you build a family. Planning first, maybe that's, I think it's supposed to be first. Planning first before you build a family. You have owned the house and lot before you build your family for the sake of anyone. Okay. So get the house and everything in order, then you get married, I guess. Is that what he's saying?
I guess that's what they're
And actually build a family as well. So basically get have the wife have a baby and everything, then buy the house, then get married. That's what I guess. I guess.
sure. I don't know what to tell you.
Getting married and starting a family should be the aspiration of most grounded individuals, but this is the generation of baby murderers. Uh-oh. And deviants. So those numbers
Whoa.
make sense. And we got three. Oh, okay. We got people now complaining in the back. in that one. Big complaint here. I'm not going to read. Okay, that's a paragraph. I'm not going to read that one. Um, let's see. Yeah, we're getting a little conflict here. Let's let people continue their little argument there. Um, Kane says, "I want a 100 wife." I don't know what that
100
means.
wives.
Oh, 100. No, it says one. I want a 100 wife. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it does mean 100 wives. I don't know. It says a 100 wife singular, so I'm not sure what that means. People who don't want to be married, please don't make a girlfriend. Hmm. I'm not sure. No one is. Okay. I'm not sure what that means. I mean, does it mean don't get a girlfriend or don't have one? I guess.
People who don't
I'm
want to
not
be
sure.
married, please don't get it. I guess he's saying he wants to be married. So if you're not interested in getting married, don't have a girlfriend, which is ridiculous, but whatever.
Yeah. I don't want to be married, but unmarried is better. Okay. Let's see. Worst. I am 13 years old. Congratulations. I'm girl study in 9 class, so I don't care. Same person. Okay. I'm only 13 years old again. Congratulations again. Uh, Lots of comments here. I don't know what that says. ID something with say. I want to divorce my soulmate, aka Joe somebody. Joe Mama. Joe Mama. Okay.
There.
Okay. Let's see. I love to be married, but single is a catastrophe. Let's see. It's bliss. Single is way better than married. If you go back in time and stop myself, I would be, I would be in a heartbreak. I would do that in a heartbeat, I guess. So, and in court, I'm not sure what that means. Okay. So that's the answers for that. Let's look at the other question we posted here. Yeah, right here. Oops. Wait, where to go? Oh, okay. Here we go. Okay, and the second question, we got a lot of ones on this. Oh, by the way, I mean, how many people voted on the last one? Did I say that? 3,500 votes on the last one.
Oh, that's
Nope.
fantastic.
Nope. Sorry. Hold on.
Oh,
Hold on. I reset the top of the screen again. Give me a second. It does that. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Give me a second. How do you feel about marriage? Oh, it was 3,500. Never mind. So all right. So the next one, 3,300 votes, almost pretty close to the same. If you're married, are you happily married? 69% with yes. I think that's where it was close when we locked off when we finished the show last week. 7 next down, 17% with no, 8% with I want a divorce, and 7% with sometimes. Interesting. I would say that my parents would fall definitely in the 17%. Well, my dad anyway is in the 17%. I'm not sure about my mother. So, uh, Kiss Best Fan said I wanted to, but it never happened. I don't care. Says Sky something something. Divorce. Ha ha ha. Divorce. Ha 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 ha. Um, well, I'm not sure what these little comments are. LOL. I'm at age 12. LOL. I'm not married. Yes, I'm not married, but that's why I'm very happy. Uh, and that's the bottom line. Something Stone Cold said. Oh, because Stone Cold said so. Uh, Not married and no girlfriend. I'm only 13 years old again. Got a lot of these on here. Me
Oh my
too.
goodness.
That's the cutoff age too. We got to be careful because
Yeah.
COPA laws kick in at 12 and under, so we got to be careful what we say here. So, um, I hate my wife. She took Charlie and the dog, and not to mention, she slept with my female best friend. I have to pay $3,000 a month in child support. Geez, that's a lot. Which isn't a problem because I'm a lawyer, and she'll never, and she said, "I'll never Charlie again." I guess she'll never see Charlie again, I guess, which pisses me off since he's my son. I'm hoping to see him soon, hopefully. Wow. $3,000 a month. Oof. I remember as my dad when he got divorced, he kept on saying that he told me to my face, "You get screwed when you get married." That's what he told me after when they were going through his divorce process. So,
Did,
I remember my
did your
mother.
parents have a prenup or probably not?
No, 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 nothing like that. No, they got married very young. They were My dad was 23, my mom was 22, so no, there was nothing like that. They were just fresh out of the military when they got married. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I always think back as like, wow, they were like that young when they got married. No wonder they got a divorce. So,
Yeah.
um,
Would you get married without a prenup? How do you feel about that? That's something I was talking about when talking to talking about with one of my coworkers yesterday was the idea of the prenup and if that is kind of like uh, the guy was pretty religious, so he wasn't a big fan of the prenup, although he was a lawyer, which was kind of this weird conundrum because he sees all the problems divorce causes and all the heartache and when you're splitting finances and stuff and a lot of those hardships and heartaches could have been avoided with a prenup, but he also, being a man of God, thinks that if you have a prenup, you're almost setting up the marriage to fail in a way, because you're not, in his eyes, you're not burning the ships. You're not saying this is it. We're doing this till death do us part for real to the end. So he said that part of him, he felt conflicted because he felt that from a more logical rational standpoint you should probably have a prenup in the event that it goes south, but he thinks that if you kind of already are set up to fail that it might influence you to kind of bail before you should.
hmm. Well,
Yeah.
when I asked when I was engaged to be married for the period of time I didn't think about it at all. But at the time, I was renting a room in a boarding house, so I didn't own
Mhm.
it. Um, didn't own any. My cars were not were not. Oh, they were getting valuable as they went on as they got older. My cars are like classic cars, so they get more valuable as they get older, right?
Right, they appreciate.
Right. So, but I didn't own like any cars that were like I had not imported my Falcons yet. So those
Mhm.
are very extremely valuable. So now that I own my own home, I own the cars. I don't know. I never thought
Well,
about it.
forget about you personally. Like, do you think having a prenup is a good idea, or do you think that you're kind of it's the marriage is then predestined to fail if you kind of already have a plan B kind of set up?
Not predestined to fail, but it does say that, hey, I don't trust you. It does tell the person
Yeah,
you're getting, I don't
yeah.
trust you.
Some people think that it kind of kills a bit of the romance of the marriage, the union, because you're like, oh, we're in love. This is gonna last forever. I'm so sure about you. But if it heads south, we should probably make sure that we're all set and ready to go in case that happens. So.
Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't I think it's probably depending on each situation, I guess. I mean,
Hmm.
each person has to I can't say there's no answer that covers everybody, I would think.
Sure,
Um,
that's
I
fair.
think there's some people that are gonna be extremely wealthy, like what, Jeff Bezos, and, Trump is, rich as well. So, people like that, if they get married, they would require one regardless, Bill Gates, people like that.
Yeah,
So but, and I would think, people that aren't there, they probably wouldn't even think about it as much. Like I said, when I was the first time I did, it was like I was, I was not really in that, didn't have anything that was really that I possessed that was very valuable at the time. So,
Right. I understand.
and I wasn't, I didn't, I don't know if I was going to, I was still struggling to get my career going in radio. So even though I was working full time in radio, I was still trying to work my way up. So, I don't know. At that point, I was like, am I going to make it? But there were some other circumstances with that. The woman I was getting married to claimed that she was filthy rich anyway. So she didn't tell me she wanted me to sign a prenup, which she was a compulsive liar anyway. What was the term you used when they said compulsive liar? You said there's a word that describes a person like that. I can't remember what it was.
Was it last week or?
No, it was about a month ago at least.
It's a word. It's a term for a compulsive liar.
Yeah, yeah. I forget what word you used. It doesn't matter. But anyway,
A
um,
pathological.
what say it? You're cutting off. Say it again.
Pathological.
Maybe that might be the word you're using.
Okay.
So, but she also, yeah, she claimed that some of the things that obviously were lies, that she was going to be able to get me a high paying radio job in some station somewhere, and it's like, yeah, okay, and then the lies just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So, but there was no sign of a prenup for her, and apparently she was, like I said, filthy rich. But I don't think that was the case. Eventually, it's the truth was starting to the facts were starting to come through after a while. So there was nothing. There was all the things she was saying were basically lies. So I don't know. How
Well,
do you feel?
dodged a bullet, my friend.
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely so. Definitely.
As
How would you? What would you do? How would you say? What would you, as far as that? I mean, would
far
you
as the
say
prenup
yes?
goes, I mean, I think any rational person would say it's a good idea, but it's always a good idea for everybody else, but not you. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where you're like, everybody else should get a prenup because 50% of marriages end in divorce. But me, I'm in love and I know for sure I'm going to be with this person forever. Everybody thinks that, or at least most people think that going into a marriage, that like, I'm set on this person, we love each other, it's, till death do us part. But I mean, the statistics really speak otherwise. So I think it's important to, make sure that you are prepared in the event that you do split up. But then a lot of people would say, well, if you think that that's a high possibility, why even get married in the first place? I mean, that's really what I'm thinking, and unless you have children, or if you have like a one income home or something like that, where, it's probably in your best interest to get married so you have a little bit more financial security if both parents aren't working. I mean, other than that, I mean, I really have no interest. Like you mentioned earlier, I'm not a person of God, so there's really no need for me to like. I don't believe in the marriage as being sacred or anything like that, or that we're married in the eyes of God or anything. So there's really no pressure for me to get married in that regard.
How
Um,
about common law marriage? How do you feel? I mean, obviously, if you live with someone long enough, then you are in a sense married. In some states, that's considered marriage. What they
Interesting.
call
Yeah, where like you can, if one partner has a good insurance policy through work, that the other partner can cover, even if they're not married. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's kind of the way to go. Then what would be really the difference between that and actually getting married? Like there must be some benefit to actually getting the paperwork done, right? Otherwise, everyone kind of
well,
do
yeah,
that.
well, yeah, like I said, the taxes, things like that. That's but
Right,
I
but
mean,
it
that,
offers some benefits. I see what you're saying.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, at that point, you couldn't really have a prenups. Most prenups, though, they only cover what's. And by the way, you are breaking up a little bit, just to let you know. I'm not sure what's
Okay.
going.
I'm trying to. Is that a little
On.
better?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's sporadic, so it's not like consistent. So, but most prenups, they only cover like any wealth or anything that's acquired after the marriage, or does it cover before the marriage as well?
I don't know. I don't know if it's itself. I also
Oh,
know that once.
okay, okay,
Sorry.
that time, yeah, that time
Yeah.
you really dropped out there. I don't know what happened there,
Oh, I
but
just plugged. I put the charger in just so that my iPad didn't die. Um, yeah, and also once you enter kids into the equation, then you can basically throw the prenup out the window. I was told
oh,
from
really?
multiple lawyers. Yeah, like the prenup is, predicated, I guess, on your lives as they are now. But once you have kids, like that can all be like rearranged or amended. So there's lots of variables. It's not like it's something that's set in stone by any means. but it does offer at least a framework of like what your life, or not life, would look like financially post marriage. So
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well,
mhm.
what about the part I was asking though? Let's skip the kids
Yeah,
part.
yeah.
Uh, Anything that's acquired prior to the marriage, is that part of a, I mean, isn't that usually that's automatically excluded anyway, isn't it? Or is that
I would assume so, but I don't know. So I don't want to give you. I honestly do not know.
okay?
I'm, I'm not sure. I don't know if that is if that depends on, because I think what's supposed to happen is, like, if a prenup is done correctly, each partner has their own lawyer. So the lawyer of like the husband, whatever, drafts it and then sends it to the lawyer of the wife, and then they go over it and they sign it.
Oh, wow.
So they both, like, when a prenup is signed, both partners agree that these are the terms that they agree to in the event of a divorce.
Okay. Okay.
But I don't know. I know I didn't answer your question, but I don't know.
Okay. I mean, for me, I'd be kind of concerned about, like, say, like there are cars I've owned since I was 16. I bought my first car when I was 13. Bought my second car when I was like 15.
Yeah.
And I still owned a lot of these cars. So I'm like, my concern would be, well, hey, are you going to try to say you have possession of something that I've owned since long before, that I even met you, or, most likely met you, unless it's the one that,
Sure.
but I mean, I've owned for a very, very long period of time. I'm wondering how, if they could lay a claim on something like that, because I wasn't sure how that worked.
Well,
So,
I think it's got to do with your, what's the term that they use? Your standard of living. So if you get married and you're used to a certain standard of living, whatever that may be, income wise, or just how much money you're kind of burning through each month, the accommodation that you're used to, you're supposed to maintain that level of that standard of living, which is ridiculous because how are you supposed to, like, if you're say a husband and a wife, and you split up, you essentially each have half of the money that you had before if you're splitting 50-50. So you shouldn't have the exact same standard of living. Obviously, you're going to have to downsize if you get divorced, at least for most people. So that's kind of how they measure it, is how much money do you need to sustain your quote standard of living. So if you're used to being a poor bitch, you're going to stay poor. But if you're used to being rich and you're used to getting, Louis Vuittons and Audis and getting your hair done every week, then that's the sort of lifestyle you're going to maintain. Or at least that's what it says in a court of law, I think. Don't quote me on anything. Not a lawyer, but
okay. Well, the interesting thing, when I was, no, I mean, there was no custody dispute for my parents. I was 16, and I think I told you I was pretty much already living on my own at that point anyway.
yeah.
Um, I was technically still living with my dad, but I was like pretty much doing whatever I wanted to. My sister, though, was 9 years old, and this is talking about divorce. This is kind of like in the same area, but not really what we're talking about. I found it interesting that I forget who told me this, that my sister would have a choice in deciding who she would want to live with, either my mother or my dad. So
Hmm.
lately I've heard, and I was kind of surprised to hear this, that custody it usually goes to the mother. And I thought they had gotten past that. I thought it was more or less who they thought was, I thought that was more decided in court. Have you heard anything about that?
Actually, we did discuss this a little bit yesterday. I think if about 20 or 30 years ago, most of the time custody was full custody, or at least like 80-90% of the custody of the children was awarded to the mother. Now I think they're trying to make it more balanced, more 50-50. But I mean, they really try. I think the court really tries to fight for parents being in their children's lives. Whereas it seemed like before, I remember, at least me growing up, I remember many of my friends whose parents got divorced. It's like they lived with their mother, and then every other weekend they were with dad, and then maybe like a month in the summer or something
Mm.
like that. But primarily they lived with their mother. So I think that's shifting now, where they don't just kind of blindly hand off the reins to the mother, because that's clearly, I mean, I would be fucking devastated, either way, you
Right.
know.
Well, but you're saying decades ago, but yeah, my parents decided to get divorced in 1985, and this was back then. And they were
Wow.
that, so it wasn't, there was no, I thought it was going to be for the mother, but no, I was told it was basically more, it was a 50-50 back then.
I'm sorry. How old was your sister when your parents got divorced? You said 9?
Well, yeah, that's when they started the divorce. Well, it took, like, about 3 or 4 years, so I guess she was,
Okay.
like,
I'm like,
close to
maybe because she was a little bit of an like an older child, they allowed her to choose. But I mean, obviously, if an infant or a toddler or a young child's involved, they're probably going to have it court ordered as to who they should be staying with and when. You know, so
okay. Just
yeah, I don't
curious.
know. I'm guessing. I don't know. But.
Alright. Okay, well, let's get back to these questions, let's see my answers here. Hold on, I forgot the question. What was the question again? Hold
Are
on.
you happily married?
Are you have if you're married, are you have yeah, okay, so, Sandeep, Mohan R says, "Sometimes." Uh, Alejandro says, "Most of the people seeing this are not married." And Brandon P says, we might have read this one, I'm not sure. "I'm not married, but I have 6 girlfriends, and they all live in San Andreas." Uh that's an inside joke. I might need to explain that to you because, and uh, laugh my ass off. How many coffees do you take a day? That's also an inside joke. In the game in the video game Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, you can acquire up to 6 girlfriends. Technically, there's 7 altogether.
All
So,
right.
and you can acquire those 6 additional girlfriends, and that's what he's referring to. And then the comment about how many coffees you have a day, basically, whenever you go on a date with a girlfriend, and if it's a successful date, she'll invite you in for coffee afterwards.
Ah, okay.
So I thought I'd explain that so you just in case you're wondering what all that meant. So
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll die happy that you know that now. So no,
Oh yes, thank you. Thank you for the information.
all right. So what kind of question would you like to ask this week?
Well, I've been digging deep into the lab leak conspiracy. I don't even want to call it a theory anymore, although I guess technically it still is. I want to know what people think about it. I don't know if you saw the Jon Stewart viral video of him on Colbert, and the conservatives are kind of giving him a pat on the back for which is really really bizarre because obviously if we're trying to find the origin of this epidemic of this pandemic, it shouldn't be a partisan issue, right? We're just in search of science and we're in search of truth. But as it is, everything is political, everything is politicized. The lab leak theory seems to be more popular among conservatives than is the wet market bat in soup thing that happened. It occurs naturally in nature, which the liberals seem to endorse. So Jon Stewart, who was a massive critic of Trump and a very outspoken liberal, was talking about making jokes about how this was clearly leaked from a lab, and he got some pushback from Colbert, who's also very liberal. And there was this viral video, and it's actually really funny. You should check it out. It's only like a 2 minute clip. But
Actually, I've seen most of it. So yeah,
oh, have
I
you? Okay, yeah, it was pretty funny. It's like, did a turtle kiss a turkey or whatever? It was. I mean, he did obviously did a lot better, but that was pretty funny. So
what was that?
I'm
What part was that? I don't know if I saw that. What was that? I missed that part altogether.
well,
What was
he like well, this only happened like yesterday, the day before.
it?
But basically, he kind of details like this came from Wuhan, and in Wuhan there was like an institute of virology that was specifically studying a
Oh,
coronavirus, and like clearly like it came from there. And he just said it's so great that science is able to cure or remedy a situation in which science caused. Like that's how it started. And so there was that funny kind of moment where he thanked science, but also blamed science for for
right.
coronavirus. And then Colbert kind of pushes back. He's like, "Well, that's just the theory." And then Jon Stewart goes into full showman mode and just starts, I mean, he's really animated. He's like standing up, he's making all these jokes about how this is clearly from the fucking lab, please, bitch. And the conservatives were kind of applauding him because that's more of a conservative, stance on the origin of the coronavirus, which is again insane that there's a liberal and conservative stance on the origin of a virus, which is it should just be like science and fact and data. But of course, like everything, it needs to be politicized. So I just thought it was really funny. But I want to know what people think about the lab leak theory and if they think it's I think we could just make it as simple as, do you think coronavirus came from nature or do you think it was leaked from the lab? like that.
You think? Okay, this doesn't get blocked. Let's see. Coronavirus. How do you spell? I can't even spell now. Virus. There we go.
There you go.
Do you think? Okay, and I'm leaving out words again. You're not catching me. You're not doing your job over there. Do you think coronavirus came
You'll
from a?
self correct. Do you think coronavirus came from nature, or do you think it was leaked from a lab?
Or yeah, it's a long one.
Mm-hmm.
Think it was leaked from a lab.
There you go.
Okay. It came from nature. Do you think? Okay, good. Last time, every time I'm always leaving out some word in my thing because, as one of my students pointed out, whenever I handed out a test, it would happen a lot when I do my hand out a test. They say there's a missing word here on your test, and one of the students pointed out, you're just reading. You already know what the question is. That's why you're missing the word when you read it in your head. And I go, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, I see that in my text all the time. I do that because you say it in your head, and then you miss off in like articles and prepositions and stuff like that, like in and
You know,
under, whatever.
this is what I do, and you might think this is silly, but I do this a lot lately, just so this doesn't happen. I do this. I go to Google Translate, and I actually listen.
Mhm.
Do you think coronavirus came from nature, or do you think it was leaked from a lab?
That way, when I
Perfect. And
that
then
way when I hear it, that way I know if I missed anything. So
well, that's smart. That's a good way to edit.
okay, so let's see. I'll say from nature. What from nature to be the first response?
Yeah.
Okay, no, nature's not capitalized. So we'll just say
Or
nature.
you could just say nature leaked from a lab. Yeah, whatever. That works. People get it.
Well, yeah, well, because that's what the question is. Do you think it came from nature? So the answer would be from nature, or do you think it was
Mm-hmm.
from a lab? The next would be leaked from a lab.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I could say came from nature. I guess maybe. How about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think they get it.
Okay, leaked from a lab, from a lab. Anything else?
That is all.
Okay. How about the usual? I don't care.
I almost don't even want to put that because I feel like that people might opt out, but like I like forced choice. Like, what do you think?
Okay.
But yeah, let's just leave it 1 and 2 and see what we come up with.
Well, came from nature, leaked from a lab.
Because if they don't care, then they don't have to answer the question.
Okay. There we go.
Perfect. And we'll check back on that in a bit. But I'm curious to see what our audience thinks
I
and where their beliefs lie.
I'm curious to see if YouTube's going to block this. So,
Yeah, that should be interesting. What do you think?
we'll be able to tell if it's blocked by the number of votes. One of the questions I asked one time only got like usually they get anywhere from 3,500 to like 6,000 votes altogether. I put one in there and they didn't like what I asked if something to the effect. I think I might have asked you this one. When you go on a date, would you like to give your girlfriend a vibrator or something like that? And YouTube didn't like it, so it only gotten like less than 100 votes, which was like
Whoa.
so to me that indicates that they blocked it from really getting a lot of exposure. They
Or
didn't
like shadow banded or something.
Yeah, so the very few people got a chance to actually see it. So, um,
Yeah. But what do you think about the question? Like, if you were to answer it, what would you say?
I've never really it doesn't really seem to concern me either way. I just, um, I mean, I hear people say one side, I hear the other. I've never really taken a side either or. I mean, I'm just curious myself as to where it came from. That's all. I mean, I hear the people bickering back and forth, and the one side they say they're right, the other side says they're right, and I'm like, yeah, I just don't want to get involved. To be honest, I really don't. I just don't. I just want to know. I'd like to know where it came from. I guess I've somewhat of a curiosity, but overall, I mean,
You're not really convinced either way
no,
of
definitely not. No, I'm
okay.
definitely not convinced either way. I could not answer that question either with either of those question answers. So,
Yeah,
I'm being straightforward and honest. It
sure.
just doesn't really concern me. It's never. It's just like I
But
see.
I mean it does well. It does concern you because I mean this was a global issue. This was something that affected all of us, and we should know where it came from so we can prevent it from happening again, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
but I think that I think I told you this. I think that it was a major overreaction in the first place. I think I think this disease was nowhere near as bad as they said it was going to be. And there was I recently found out, and I can't remember what the name of the pandemic was, but there was another one that occurred in 1957 that was even more devastating than the one that's going on right now, and they didn't shut anything down. And I can't remember what the name of it was. I was surprised to hear about it because and they say it's mostly forgotten in history because during that period of time, it was only 12 years since World War II had ended, and the Korean War just ended about 5 years earlier or 6 years earlier, or whatever it was. And people during that time period just they were more dealing with roughing it out than trying to hide from it. So that's the basic idea that they were used to dealing with hardship and everything. So it's like they did the idea of shutting everything down was not even a thought, and a lot of people died from that one. A lot of people died,
Hmm.
especially children. So I can't, I don't remember where I heard it from. I wish I could give you a source of that. And to me, it's like this one. I think this one just people just overreacted. So the idea of trying to figure out where it came from was like, well we just overreacted this time. It's it's if something more serious comes out, like the one that happened back in with the Spanish flu back in after World War I. No, that was devastating. That was something to be taken seriously.
Yeah, let me actually look up the stats. I think that killed
That was a
more
lot.
people than like it was something insane, like more than World War One and World War II combined. Let's see.
Yeah, it was a huge
World
number of people. That
War-
if it was something like that, I could understand
yeah.
taking it seriously, but what the numbers that I was reading, I
It
mean,
says 50 million.
yeah. Yeah.
So that I
So,
think that's let me see. World War II deaths.
no, when you say
Deaths.
World War II deaths, you're including everybody from all
Everybody.
okay.
75 million, so maybe not. Maybe I lied to you.
Because I was gonna say that's 50 million. I mean, that's it seems like there were probably a lot more with the devastation that went through Europe at that time.
Yeah, yeah. I'm okay because we're talking. It says 20 million military personnel, 40 million civilians, many of whom died because of deliberate genocide, massacres, mass bombings, disease, starvation. Okay, okay, all right. 50 million isn't something to sleep on either, so I get it.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. But I mean, and what's the one from 1957? I'm just
Let
gonna
me
see if I
see. I also want to look up World War One deaths because I feel like it hurts me. Let me look up the 1957 one.
World War.
Okay, 20 million people died in World War One.
Okay,
So
yeah,
two and a half that died in the Spanish flu. And you said 1957.
yeah. I don't.
Was it pandemic, epidemic?
It was a pandemic, pretty sure.
All right, okay. 1957, 1958 pandemic. You're right. H2N2 pandemic influenza.
And it was pretty
Asian
serious.
flu. They made this one real vague. The Asian flu. I guess it was from birds.
Yeah,
Reported in
I
before.
didn't hear that part of it. So what you're looking at is probably what
Holy
I would.
shit, you're right. Estimated number of deaths was 1.1 million worldwide and
Yeah.
116,000 in the US. What are we at? No, we're at like 600 something thousand, I think, deaths. But who even knows if that's accurate?
Right. And like I said, it was like it's like I didn't even know about it until I recently, like I said, until like within the past week when I heard someone talking about somewhere and I don't remember where. But
I didn't know either. So thank you for relaying the information.
and it's like this was just another. I mean, we've had all these other scares over the past years, like few years with SARS, and then shortly after, I'm sure you remember after the 2011 or 2001 September 11th. When after that there was the anthrax scare. Remember that?
Yeah.
They didn't shut anything down for that, and that was all over the place. I remember the only thing they shut down were the post offices. That's what I remember. So, and that was all over the place. People were terrified of that thing, more so than maybe as much as now. I don't know, but and they didn't shut anything down. So it's like why shut it down this time? It just didn't make any sense to me. There's no it just seemed like another bad disease that needed to be dealt with, and was just a major overreaction. So for me, the idea of being concerned where it came from is not really a concern because it was not really the disease. They just overreacted. So being concerned where it came from is not really, unless there's something more deadly than this, then I would be, I would,
Yeah, but the thing is like they were studying. I don't know if you're familiar with gain of function research, but that's what they were doing in that lab. And gain of function research is where you try to take a function of the virus, whether it's the deadliness of it, or how contagious it is, something like a property of the virus, and you try to, I guess, I don't want to say not capture it, but you try to exacerbate it, right? So you take can we make this one virus more deadly? Can we make this one virus and tweak it and make it more contagious? So that's what they were doing in the lab. And apparently this sort of stuff happens all the time, where it leaks out of the lab, because if you're trying to make something more contagious, you might be actually succeeding, and you make it really contagious, and then the people who work the lab end up contracting it. And then, which is exactly what happened. And apparently that's not unusual, but I guess, this was obviously a.
Go. I'm sorry. You're saying that's exactly what happened? I thought this was still up in the air. Are you?
No, I mean, but they were. I'm not saying that this is exactly the origin of coronavirus, but they were studying gain of function research.
Oh, okay.
The Wuhan Institute was studying gain of function research, which is, you're trying to assess the certain properties of the virus, and you're trying to manipulate them so that you can create a newer virus that is either more contagious, or it is more deadly, whatever. And allegedly they're using this information to create vaccines to combat viruses, quote, in the future. So that's the sort of research that was being done. No one is suggesting that that's not the case. Whether a coronavirus leaked from the lab is the, quote, theory. But I mean, if that's the kind of research that they were doing in the lab, and that's the kind of research they're allowed to do, and the kind of research that the United States was funding, which, if you start to dig a little bit, you go, oh no, because we slammed Wuhan and the Chinese government and everything, but we were actually giving U.S. tax dollars to the Wuhan Institute of Virology to study this sort of stuff. So we played ourselves. You know what I mean? And then when you think about it even deeper, you're like, oh shit, me, the taxpayer, is paying for these assholes to play God and work on this research. And they're either not being careful about it, or it's really dangerous and they shouldn't be doing it in the first place. And then they create this virus that, infects the entire globe.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is the case, then yeah, I think it's important we know the origin so that we can take precautions so that this doesn't happen again, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Oh, well, I mean, I still don't have an answer yet. So I'll leave
Okay.
it.
I was just wondering what you thought.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I just can't, I understand exactly what you're saying. I really do. And I
Right.
appreciate the explanation. But for me, I still don't have an answer, yes or no, definitively. So,
Sure.
I
And
mean,
no one does. Yeah, no one does. But I think it more than likely it was leaked from a lab. And
okay.
what's shameful is that, the whole reason why Fauci's emails were such a bombshell was because in those emails he pretty much says that by looking at this under a microscope, it's pretty obvious that it was, quote, engineered. So, and from the research that I've done, all the virologists that have looked at this virus under the microscope, it's very apparent that this is not something that naturally occurs in nature. So, some people have been saying that this is looks similarly to like the AIDS virus, I think, and they like tweaked it, and I'm not quite sure. I could be speaking out of my ass, but it has a similar protein or something like that, where it's kind of like a marker, like, oh, this came from, I think AIDS research. I think they were trying to like using something from the AIDS virus, and I don't know what they were doing, splicing it into this or whatnot. But anywho, if that is the case, and we covered it up to save face, or for certain scientists to save face so we wouldn't come after them, I mean, that's incredibly shameful, and the biggest conspiracy of the century, I'd say.
So far, we still have 79 years to go, but yeah.
Well, let's say in the last 100 years range, you know what I mean? It doesn't.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I'm just
Yeah, but it's pretty wild, and the fact that more people are concerned with what Chrissy Teigen said on Twitter than the fact that
wait,
we were
wait,
late.
what's that? I'm sorry, what's
Well,
that? I don't know what that is.
oh, yeah, Chrissy Teigen, I guess like 10 years ago or something, told this girl that she should kill herself. And if you're familiar with Chrissy Teigen, I don't know if you know who that is. She was like
no.
she's married to she's like a model. She's married to John Legend, who's a singer, songwriter, piano player.
Okay.
Um, and she's, part of the Hollywood bubble. But what's really obnoxious about Chrissy Teigen is she is a big fan, a big proponent of cancel culture. Like she herself seeks to cancel people, ruin their careers, call people out. She thinks she's a social justice warrior. So she thinks that she's, holier than thou and she knows what's best for everybody. But turns out, people did a little digging on her and they found some very unfavorable things that she said to a minor. She told this girl that she should take a dirt nap and kill herself.
What's a
And so
what's a
it's just,
what's
sorry.
a what's a dirt nap? What's
I
that
think
mean?
it's like be like put yourself in a grave, like kill yourself. I think is
Oh,
that.
oh, okay.
I've never heard that term either, but as
Okay.
is, as it was like kind of inferred, it's like go kill yourself, take a dirt nap, put yourself in a grave.
Okay.
So yeah, so I think the media exploded on that because she is such a proponent of you have to say the right thing, being politically correct. You can never deviate, you can never make a mistake. There are some things you can never get retribution for, or you can never get redemption for. Like you can't redeem yourself, and you should, like Louis C.K. I don't know if she made an actual statement about Louis C.K., but she's the type to be like he should never perform again because he masturbated in front of women, that sort of stuff. So but here she is, come to find out she's worse than most, where she's telling a child, essentially a 16-year-old girl, to go kill herself. Like that's cyberbullying if you ever heard it, like so.
That's okay. Yeah. So as far as the you said your research, this is convinced you that, or mostly convinced you that it is come from a lab, is what you were saying. That's
Yeah.
your okay. And I mean, nothing. There's nothing that's saying that otherwise at this point for you.
No, no. I think the wet market was just a cover up because when it comes from nature, you can't really. It's like saying, like, who are we going to blame for this hurricane? It's like we can't be mad at America. Like a hurricane is just a function of nature, sort of thing. And that's kind of how they tried to spin it. Is like this is just something that happens sometimes. It's no one's fault. It's just a function of nature. So that was kind of the cover that this came from nature, but in actuality, I think, again, I don't know anything 100%, but I really do think that this was derived in a lab. Whether it leaked intentionally or accidentally, I don't know. I'm really hoping it wasn't intentional. My gut is telling me that it was probably an accident because that sort of shit happens all the time. But then, it was just error after error where, like, if it did come from a lab, if it did leak, then China lied to the world and said that there was no human to human transmission. This was like back in November of 2019. There's nothing to worry about. They, I think, closed their doors. Like, I don't know if they were letting people in, but they were letting people from Wuhan leave. And they ended up taking it all over the globe.
Right.
It's crazy to think that, like, something that may have been cooking in a lab at the end of 2019 made it into my body in April of 2021.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that is kind of crazy to me that, like, there was a time where there was patient zero. There was one person on the globe that had it. There was
Right.
the first person that had it, and then, like, fast forward a year and, like, you've infected a planet. Like, that is pretty fucking wild to me.
Well, yeah, but that happens all the time with other diseases. We just
Sure, yeah, it doesn't have to be coronavirus, but just the idea that, like, one person out of like 8 billion people had it and spread it to not almost everybody, but a massive percentage of the population, like globally, like in every country that exists on the planet. I think, maybe like not some, crazy, maybe not like Fiji or something, but for the most part, there's been at least one case in every single country, reported case. So it's just so crazy to me that, and again, not to say just of coronavirus, but of any virus that either comes from a lab or from nature, it essentially it starts with just one person. Like, it's crazy.
So I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to hate me for doing this,
Oh,
but
please ask it. Now you have to.
okay. I know you love conspiracy theories.
I sure do.
So Are you sure this isn't just you, hoping a conspiracy is true? It's not actually just a theory, but something that's actual a conspiracy fact?
I mean, I don't think that again, I follow the data. You know, I think that I don't just jump on a conspiracy because it's a conspiracy. I wasn't a part of QAnon. I didn't think that Donald Trump was trying to take down a cabal of like Hollywood pedophiles that were fucking and eating kids. Like I didn't believe that. There was really no evidence to suggest that. I kept an open mind. But after the Fauci leaks, the leak of the emails a couple weeks ago, and also just the set of coincidences, and I understand coincidences aren't data, but I mean, you have to admit that's really fucking odd that we have like a top tier institute of virology that has a department dedicated to coronaviruses from bats, and all of a sudden this happens to break out in Wuhan, China. Like that is odd, worth investigating. But I think more than anything, the reason why we were told that it was a conspiracy theory by the media is because of a report that the WHO did, and the Chinese government did, I think I don't know if it was the beginning of 2020 or the middle of 2020. But if you dig a little bit deeper, the guy that we were actually sending the money to, his organization I think it was called Eco Health Alliance. It was an NGO, so it was a non-governmental organization. His name is Peter Daszak. I encourage you to to look this guy up. So he's the president of this organization, right? He's getting money from the United States government to fund this research in Wuhan, China. Now, when it breaks out, who do we send to Wuhan to investigate the origin of the coronavirus? This guy, who is head of the is head of this organization that is funding the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Why are we? I mean, that's a massive conflict of interest. Where it's like, hey, go investigate this and see if it's your fault. Of course, he's going to say, oh, it's a wet market and it came from a pangolin and gave it to a bat. So I mean, why did we send that guy to do the investigative research and the Chinese government? Like, please, these assholes lie all the time. It's their job.
Okay.
So
Well, I'm just playing like, devil's advocate here. I'm not trying to.
of course. No, I
I,
get passionate about it. I'm excited because I've been reading a lot about it
well,
recently.
I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Finish what you're going to say, and I'll ask you what I was going to say. Go ahead.
Yeah. So no, basically, when you kind of look into the nefarious characters of Anthony Fauci and the emails that were leaked, and Peter Daszak, who was the one who led the investigation, and he was also the one who was funding the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I mean, you just kind of have to put your hands up in the air and go, well, of course they said it didn't come from the fucking lab. So that's kind of my reasoning right now. Again, I'm not 100% convinced, but it seems to be very extremely plausible that that's what happened.
Okay. I mean, I mean, there's no confirmation bias here, is there? I mean, I,
Um,
I mean, are you looking at this? You're only looking for basically looking for the answers that confirm what you want to believe. That's what I mean.
well, here's the thing. Like, I just want to know the truth. I always want to know the truth. Obviously, conspiracy theories are fun, but I mean, it's when this first came out, the lab was on my radar, but I definitely thought it came from the wet market, like everybody, because that's what I was told. But as more information revealed itself, and as I started to dig a little bit deeper, I realized that it probably didn't come from the fucking market. It probably came from the lab, and the market was a cover up. So that's where I'm at right now. Again, not 100% convinced, but I mean, like, I think it's almost silly to believe that it came from the market.
Well, I'm trying to ask you though. I mean, if you're looking deep inside to yourself, I mean, do you look at yourself from an outside perspective? Do you think if there's any confirmation bias? Is what I mean. Or you think you're looking at this objectively, or do you think you're looking? That's
As
what.
objectively as one can, of course we all have biases, we all have things we want to believe. I'm trying to be as objective and have my opinions guided and directed by empirical data as much as possible, of course. But I mean, I think that with the coming to light of the leak of emails, or I don't even want to know if you want to call it a leak, but they exposed the emails of Anthony Fauci, where he seemed to know and also believe that it came from a lab. This isn't just me saying that. It's the guy who was telling us that it came from the market. He was the one that was peddling this idea that it was, came from a market, it came from a pangolin that sneezed on a bat, that, took a shit in your soup or whatever, you know. Um, he was the one that was peddling that it was that. And then privately in emails was corresponding with Peter Daszak, was corresponding with Mark Zuckerberg, was corresponding with, other members of big tech saying, hey, listen, this looks engineered, but if anybody starts to say it's probably engineered, cut them off on social media, flag those posts on Facebook where, you flag it as misinformation and you take it down or you ban someone or you put them in, Facebook jail or whatever. So, I mean, when you kind of see that, what is going on, I don't want to say like you'd have to be stupid to believe otherwise, but just because the media is telling you something, and I think you agree with me, just because the media is telling you something doesn't mean that it's the truth. And we kind of have to, the onus is now on us to be, our private investigators, to be private journalists, to be, the ones that are digging through, articles and documents on Google to really know the truth, because the mainstream media does not have our best interest in mind. And so that's kind of where this is all coming from, is it's data driven,
Well, mainstream. Okay, yeah, okay. Well, I would say because a lot of local news, or I've seen that a lot of local news organizations seem to be more straight on, straightforward. So yeah, you're talking about the larger news
Yeah, the
organizations.
larger, of course, the ones that have like a monopoly on, because most people aren't watching local news. Most people are watching CNN, Fox, MSNBC. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. You don't. I wouldn't trust. Yeah, you wouldn't trust saying. There's always obviously a very bias
Sure.
on all of those. Yeah, of course. But yeah, if, I used to work at. I told you I worked at WTOP for a number of years, so there was more straightforward news reporting there, and I'm sure I haven't listened to them in a while, but I'm assuming they're probably still very straightforward in their news reporting,
Hmm.
compared to like say, and they're very big. They're the biggest. They would always brag about being the highest billed station in the entire country. So they're recognized across the country as well. So I would think that they would be very unbiased, based on what I remember, and the people that are still working over there. I don't think they would be like CNN or Fox. So uh,
Right.
I just want to emphasize that, because people often say mainstream media, but there are news organizations out there that will be more fair in their judgment of things. So
Yeah, and I also think like local news may revolve more, not always, but they often talk about local issues. So no, I don't think they're lying to us about, the Renaissance Fair. You know what I mean? Like, they're covering other stuff, but CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, those are the ones that cover national and global affairs 24/7.
right. Yeah, yeah. Well, okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not really talking about local stuff. I'm talking about the coverage of the Wuhan virus
Oh,
itself.
okay. Okay.
That's, I mean, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, but I think a lot of them, because anytime I've ever seen any kind of local news, when I periodically check it out, they seem to be very more straightforward and direct. They're not, I don't see much of a bias. So, and I don't look at very much of it, but every time I do see that it's more balanced.
It is much less sensationalized.
Yeah.
Much less. Yeah, I've noticed that as well. It seems to be like, well, this is what we know, this is what we think, but you go to Fox or CNN and they're like, the other side's trash and you should be ashamed of yourself and Trump's a piece of shit or Biden sucks, or that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I'm getting tired of that too. So I have a
Yeah.
complaint. I have a rant I'd like to talk about, say one time, but I don't think we're running out of time for that. So I wouldn't, we could do it on the next show or something. So.
Yes. Yeah, let's do it on the next show.
But let's go back to our question, since we got let's see, we can bring it up here. I'm going to refresh it. I refreshed it once to see what it's like. I'll refresh it again, see what we got up to. 67 votes. Based on that, I'm not sure if they might be partially blocking this right now. Just to be honest, I think they may be.
Okay.
Because normally right now we'd be up to closer to 100. So they might be what's the word, throttling this. I don't know if that's the right word, but keeping enough people from seeing it. But we are getting some results. So 81%, pretty high. You on your side, leaked from a lab. 19%, only 19%. That's pretty low. Less than a fifth saying came from nature. Interesting. So let's look at the answers real quick. It was it was okay. That's another. So
Overwhelming. Yeah.
it was Sweet was the first one answer. That's Sweet is the character from Grand Theft Auto San
Of
Andreas. So
course it is.
Brandon P, another Grand Theft Auto. response. I believe it was released from Area 69, which is area is Grand Theft Auto's version of Area 51. It's called Area 69 in the game. So in fact, 69 is a very common number in San Andreas. You'll see it a lot. It's there. Obviously, they're
Oh, I
inside.
wonder why.
The next two were more serious, though. According to Dr. Fauci, he believes it wasn't artificial, but we will have to wait and see if the facts come out. Okay, and that's kind of what you're discussing there. Well, kind of, but you said the exact opposite, though, didn't you, about what Fauci said about the emails?
According to Dr. Fauci, believes that it wasn't artificial,
Yeah, you
but
said he said it
we'll have
was
to
in
wait.
the
I said
emails.
that it was. Yeah, in the emails he said that it looks like it has been engineered.
Well, you broke up when you said that. Sorry. Can you say that again?
Yeah. In the emails when he was, I forget exactly who he was corresponding with, but I think it was some researcher or someone. But they discussed that the virus, and I agreed that the virus looked like it had been engineered.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So he is saying the opposite of what you're saying there.
Yeah.
So, okay. And finally, AK Religion Roll says in Wuhan, China. So, yeah, I know it doesn't really give an answer, though, because, because it could be either or based on that response. Okay. Well, we can check that out next week. So, all right. So, time to wrap everything up. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Nope, not a thing. I hope everybody has a great week and a great weekend, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Okay. And yeah, don't forget to, we'll come back to the question. Feel free to ask the question if you want to ask comments or ask in the comment section as well. We can skim through there and we can try to answer those. So, all right. Thank you, everybody.